Good day everyone and welcome to the Civ tier list video for the Age of Antiquity on Civilization 7's patch 1.2.2. Setting the usual ground rules here, this is a single player tier list. We are assuming deity difficulty, of course, as well as a standard speed game on a standard map. And as usual, this is just my opinion. Let me know your thoughts down below and I'll put chapters on this video too, so that you can jump to your favourite Civ to see where they landed. And with that, let's get straight into it with Aksum. Alright, Aksum, first cab off the rank. Let's start with the Civ ability. So, the Kingdom of Natural Wealth. Aksum gets plus 2 gold on resources, and plus 30% production towards constructing the Great Stele. That is their associated wonder. So right off the bat, there's a bit of a clue here that Aksum is all about gold. Aksum is all about resources and getting a ton of gold from those resources. This is a really good early game bonus. Good thing for Aksum is that in Civ 7, gold is a very, very valuable resource. It's the only way you can upgrade towns to cities, and because the ages are quite short in this game, or they can be anyway, even on long, gold is a great way to accelerate your empire's growth, and that is particularly important when the games don't go on that long, so you don't have that time for your empire to ramp up so quick. Gold lets you do that, so a great ability, a very solid one. The unique unit, we have the Dao. Plus 4 combat strength on coast, which is all you're going to be on in the Age of Antiquity. So that's pretty solid. Plus 4 is not bad. And more importantly, plus 1 charge to create a naval trade route. This is quite strong. It's something you don't really think about. You don't often find yourself building boats much in Antiquity, but when you have a unit like the Dao, you do build them and you find that they're actually quite good. The trade route is really where I think a lot of the strength comes from. It's very rare, I find, for other civs to settle on the coast as well, such that a Dao or two can actually make a significant difference. But if you can, I mean, naval units are very strong. Naval units are extremely strong. And you get them very early, and I think they start out as tier 2, if I'm not mistaken. So Dao's a really good unit. If you can make use of it in a combat sense, fantastic. If you can only use it as a sort of scouting and trade route unit, is still great. So the Dao's fantastic. And what happens when you use the naval trade route on the Dao? You get one of these, a Tankwar, and it's the unique trade ship, and it cannot be pillaged, and it has plus 10 trade route range, which is fantastic. Trade route range is just a generally decent bonus. I mean, in terms of the unique traders, it's probably the best one from memory. I know that the Khmer have one that, we'll get to it, but it's horrendous. So this is as good as they come, really, when it comes to unique traders. And finally, we have the Hawilt. They have a unique improvement, plus 2 gold, and plus 1 culture for adjacent wonders and other Hawilti, which I guess is the plural. So this is a unique improvement. It's ageless and does not remove warehouse bonuses on a tile, which, if you don't know what that means, essentially if you put one of these on top of a farm, so you've already expanded to a farm tile, and that farm was giving you, say, 3 food, 1 production, whatever it was, and you've got a granary that's, buffing that. Maybe it goes up to 4 food, 1 production. If you put the Hawilt on top of that, it keeps those yields, essentially. So that's when you read does not remove warehouse bonuses on a tile, just imagine that is basically saying it retains its original yields. I don't know why they worded it so questionably, but that's what that does. It's that effect is really strong. As for the building itself, these are quite strong as well. Again, it's more gold. Where their power really comes from, though, is, speaking of farms, if you remember the old farm triangle from Civ 6, welcome back. Close enough farm triangle. Welcome back Hawilt triangle in Civ 7. If you put 3 of these guys together, that means they're all going to do 2 gold and 3 culture each. So that's a triangle worth 6 gold and 9 culture in total. The problem is they have to be placed on flat terrain. And you can see that you're usually going to start on the coast as the Aksum, or a navigable river here, so you can get those naval trade routes going. But there's no way here where I could build a triangle. Vegetated terrain feels quite common in Civ 7 just in general, so it is quite hard to get. But if you do find a spot where you can put one down, I would say always try to make room for Hawilt triangles. So Yeah, they're very good. Good start for Aksum. But this is where things start to fall apart, unfortunately, is in their civics. Starting with the first one, so that's where you unlock the Hawilt. That's where you unlock the Great Stele, which is one of the better ones because Great Stele, I believe, is unlocked, it must be in civics or the science tree. It's at writing, so reasonably early. Luckily for you, you get it as your first tech, which is good because some civs don't do that. You get it later from their tree, which makes no sense. But the real buff here is +1 resource capacity in settlements on coast or navigable rivers. It's fine. It's kind of an okay bonus. This is more like a civic you have to get through to get to the good stuff, really. So looking at the mastery, and the good stuff's already coming, and it goes uphill from here. +1 gold on quarters adjacent to coast is pretty great. That's just a lot of passive gold you get for free. So this isn't a tradition. You get it without putting it in and you don't have to put in a civic slot. You have to use up a civic slot for this. Downside of that is you don't get to keep it on the age transition, but for the antiquity age, this is really good. You're going to get a surprising amount of gold from this, I think you'll find. Horde of Nations, +2 culture and gold for every active trade route. As you'd expect, this is good if you have lots of trade routes going, and you probably will because of your unique DAO, your unique trader, which has a lot of trade route range. So this is probably going to be a pretty solid card you're going to plug in sort of in the mid to late game of the era. Over here we have a Monumentum Adulitanum. Probably the last time I'll try and pronounce any of these. So this says the altar and monument gain a +1 culture adjacency with the Hawilti, which is okay. It's not fantastic, but it does give you a good spot to put your, if you don't have any mountains, for example. A lot of culture civs can struggle if they don't spawn near mountains because that's the only way you can generate culture adjacencies from monuments, amphitheaters. I think that's the second Antiquity Age one. This does give you a way to essentially, create mountains, quote unquote. So it's okay, but I don't think it's too crazy. Throne of My Fathers. This is a fantastic tradition. +15% gold in cities adjacent to coast. You can see it wouldn't have worked here, but you really should be trying to settle on coast. This is a fantastic tradition that you can carry throughout the rest of the game. And if all your cities, or most of them, are on coast, this is more or less just a flat 15% gold buff to your cities, which is really great. And their last civic here is that the DAO ignores zone of control, which is kind of a bit of a nothing buff, really. I mean, if you're going up against fierce naval competition, then this is okay, I guess. I mean, it is pretty good, but just never really going to come into play. To be honest, in single player, I don't find the AI is very good at fielding a navy, so an okay bonus that just kind of is there. However, another fantastic tradition here. May this please the people, and it does. +2 culture on resources on or adjacent to coast. This is a huge source of culture. This is probably what's going to be making up the bulk of your culture for most of the era with this civ. Just a really fantastic tradition, and you do get to keep it throughout the game. But note that it doesn't really scale very well. +2 culture on resources is incredible in Antiquity. In Exploration, in the very early game of Exploration, it's probably, you're still going to keep it in. In fact, you will, because that kicks in from turn 1. It's really good then. But Modern, it starts to fall off. So, but regardless, this is probably one of the best civics in the game in Antiquity, I would say. Really fantastic. What you'll notice, however, I said that things start to go not so good in civics. There are no settlement limit increases. Aksum is one of 2 civs, and we'll get to the second one later. One of 2 civs that do not get a settlement limit increase through their civic tree, which is really bad. It's really terrible. Settlement limit increases are fantastic. Obviously, how many settlements you have more or less determines how well you're going to do in that game, to a large degree anyway. Aksum gets none, and this doesn't sound like the worst because you still get some through, in the science tree. Entertainment here and Organized Military. There's 2 there. You get 1 from irrigation as well in the science tree over here. Thing is, though, trust me, when you play this and you don't get the settlement limit increases, it feels really bad. It does feel really bad. So all in all, I think Aksum is a pretty good civ. I think it's probably one of my favorites in terms of flavor. I think they're a really fun civ to play. I like the way they play. I like their design. I like their improvement, how it interacts with, wanting to stack them near each other and then using that to fuel your monuments culture as well. So Aksum, I think, are a really well-designed civ. So 10 out of 10 for design. In terms of their power level, though, I think the settlement limit is just such a huge drawback. But what they have is so good. And may this please the people, I think single-handedly carries this civ from being a C tier civ up to B, and that's where they can go. So straight to B tier for the Aksum. Next up we have Carthage, who was the first civ we got from the DLC, or one of two anyway, for the first DLC civ in Antiquity, I should say. So what does Carthage get? So Carthage is far and away the most unique civ, probably in the game, realistically. Can only have one city. Towns cannot use convert to city. Receive a second merchant or colonist each time you purchase or train one. And their unique wonder is the Bursa, which is probably the worst wonder in the game, but we'll get to that. So they can only have one city. So this is, if you played Venice in Civ 5, Venice is back, and it's great. Venice was my favorite civ in Civ 5. I love playing Venice. So how have they fared in Civ 7? All in all, pretty good. So I suppose we'll start by just talking about the unique unit, which is the colonist mentioned up here. So that is their unique settler, and they get +1 embarked movement and +1 population if settled adjacent to a resource. So what this ability essentially means is you settle Carthage, and that is the only city you can have. You can still settle towns, that's no dramas there. Every time you train a settler, or what they call a colonist, which is a slightly better settler, every time you train one, you get 2. Which is a really strong ability, and the same goes for merchants as well, which again, a nice buff. With the recent changes to towns, this civ has become a little ridiculous, I think. This is meant to be a pretty serious downside, only having one city, your capital, with a pretty serious upside, getting 2 settlers and merchants every time you train one. But these new towns, the new urban centers, I think more or less circumvent the downside of only having one city, because urban centers are like 90%, 95% of the way there to being as good as cities. They're a bit ridiculous, and I feel like they'll definitely be nerfed in the next patch or changed somehow, because the way they are right now is just a little bit crazy. So I think right off the bat, Carthage is off to a really good start. If you look at their unique unit, I have a really good unique unit as well. It's the Numidian Cavalry. Can only be purchased, so you cannot produce these, and they are expensive to buy. +1 combat strength for each unique city resource assigned to your capital, and it ignores zone of control. These things can get pretty crazy. When they first came out, they were bugged. Go watch Paisley Tree's video on the Numidian Cavalry being completely busted, because it used to just be 1 combat strength for each resource in your capital. It wasn't unique. Now that it's unique, I think realistically you're going to be doing a lot of trading. You're going to have a lot of resources, but you're probably looking at 5, 6, 7 combat strength on average, which is still really good. And this is a really good unit. You can only purchase it, you can't produce it, but that's not really going to hold you back too much. You are probably going to be making quite a bit of gold as Carthage. They are really good at trading, up there with Aksum, although maybe not quite as good when it comes to gold generation. But it doesn't stop there. We have the Punic Port. There's a unique district that they get, and we'll start with the buildings. We have the Cothan, +2 production as a base, and +1 production adjacency for coast, navigable rivers, and wonders. There's their unique building. It can be purchased in towns, must be placed on coast. And the dockyard, +2 gold, and you get +1 food on top of that for resources, districts, and wonders. Importantly, as they say, these can be placed in towns. And what do you get when you combine them? You get the Punic Port, their unique quarter, and this gives you 2 extra resource slots in the settlement you build it in. So you can whack one of these in every single town, and again, you'll be making a fair bit of gold. You'll probably be able to do that. And it means that for the rest of the game, all of the settlements you found in Antiquity with the Punic Port have a permanent +2 resource capacity, which is pretty insane. Even as towns, they keep that. So you are never going to run out of resource slots on these guys. You can trade to your heart's content, and you will always be able to find space to slot things in, which is really fantastic. Couple that with the fact that this is a really good building. The Cothan in particular, less so the dockyard, the Cothan gives a ton of production. you know, when this thing's surrounded by coast, you're looking at, like, on average, probably a +7, +8, up to +9 if you can put a wonder sort of nearby. It's such a good district. The Cothan really does carry it. When you eventually convert those towns to cities in the next age, if you do go down that path, they're all going to start with a huge production bonus and food and gold from the dockyard as well. But this is probably one of the best. This is probably one of the best quarters in the game for a unique quarter for a civ. Really fantastic stuff. Carthage is off to a great start. Let's go over to their civics. Looking at their civics, we have Wisdom of Tanit. This is where you unlock the dockyard, and it gives you +15 sea trade route range, +3 gold in the capital for every trade route from the capital. Now, I don't know if this is bugged or if I just don't quite know how this works, but I don't know how you guarantee that the trade routes are coming from the capital. I'm pretty sure that this just gives you +3 gold on every trade route you make, because I'm pretty sure they always originate from the capital with Carthage, but I actually don't know, and I actually do need to test that. I'm assuming that it gives +3 gold on every trade route, which is a really good bonus. The trade route range is fantastic. If you don't start on the coast as Carthage, you should probably re-roll. They need to be on the coast for their whole civ to work, really. And ideally, a fair few of your towns are also on the coast as well, just so you can build your unique district in as many places as possible. But this is a great civic, and it sets the tone for what's to come. We look at the mastery. We have a fantastic tradition, Gore Loss, and it is +25% gold towards purchasing buildings on coast or navigable rivers, which is huge. So this will apply to your unique district to get that up cheaper. But just +25% gold towards purchasing buildings on the coast is such a good bonus. So a huge gold saver there. You can lock it in for the whole game. Really fantastic. The next bonus is a increase to the number of resources that may be assigned to the capital by 3, which is generally good. Keep in mind that the more resource slots you have in your capital, the more buffs you can put on your cavalry, which is really good. Moving on to ship sheds, this is where you unlock the Coffin. Again, a fantastic building. This thing is so amazing. You know, as soon as you get it, you're probably going to rush it to get that production up and running. After that, unfortunately, we have Bursa. This is where you unlock your unique wonder. +2 gold. Trade routes cannot be plundered. All tiles in the city that are adjacent to coast and eligible for walls receive a wall. Must be a place adjacent to coast. This thing is really bad, and you kind of only would build it for the adjacency, I guess. The trade route's not being plundered. That is, in theory, a really good bonus. Like, maybe in multiplayer, that's really great, when people actually would plunder stuff, but it doesn't really happen in Civ 7 much. All tiles in the city that, you know, that adjacent to coast and eligible for walls receive a wall. It's fine. It's very defensive. You just can't really ever see myself needing to build this. I would probably just build walls manually, really, rather than the wonder. But you do also get with the Civic +1 movement to naval units, which is really solid. Shipshed's Mastery gets that tradition there, which is +25% gold towards purchasing naval units and -1 gold maintenance for naval units. Again, doesn't generate much gold, but it saves you a lot of gold if you are building a big navy. And I would recommend building a big navy if you want to dominate people, because of this second part here, +1 range to naval units. +1 range, which is absolutely insane. Most cities on the coast will have, I mean, look at this one here. This is kind of exceptional, really, but this one's got 4 tiles where you could shoot from. That is, you know, that's probably twice as many as you'd usually see. But imagine now if your units had 2 range. It takes that from 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles to 5, 6, 7. So almost double. But trust me, on a typical sort of coast spot, maybe like here, where you might only have 2 slots or maybe 3, you can easily, this jumps from, you know, 2 to 3 ships being able to shoot at a time to 7, 8, or 9. It often triples the amount of ships you can have firing on a target. +1 range to naval units in Antiquity is absolutely ridiculous. And you can easily siege down cities with this. As I said, ships are really strong, and this just makes them through the roof, basically. Carthage is a fantastic naval domination civ because of this, and that's all there is to it. This absolutely carries Carthage's water game. onto their last civic, they have Sicilian Wars, plus 20% gold from mining towns, and plus 20% food from fishing or farming towns. Mining towns did get a buff in the most recent patch, but I still think they're going to fall behind. Food from fishing and farming towns is really great, but unfortunately urban centers now exist, and urban centers are a little ridiculous. So this tradition's kind of overshadowed a bit, I think. I don't think you're really going to be plugging this in too much anymore. Instead of a farming or a fishing town, you should probably just make it an urban center, which still sends food to your capital, for example. Just doesn't give you the bonuses to fishing boats and that sort of thing. So in theory, a great tradition that'll probably stand the test of time in future patches. But right now, I don't think it's as good as it was last patch, unfortunately. However, you also get +2 settlement limit, which is a huge bonus. You do have to get through these two, unfortunately, to get there, so it doesn't come very early. But you do get 2 in 1 here, so 2 settlement limit from this one civic is really great. So keep in mind then, Carthage is one of the few civs that does get a +2 settlement limit from their civics instead of the standard +1. And lastly, we have +1 movement and sight to Numidian cavalry units, and they get +1 codex slot in city halls in towns with a trade outpost focus. Again, trade outposts, I mean, they're better on Carthage than anyone else because you can, they want to trade as much as possible. Keep in mind though, you're already getting +15 from up here, so you don't often need that much more once you get +15. Granted, it's still decent, +20 is better than +15, obviously, but I don't think it's as impactful as you might expect, so keep that in mind. I think this mastery is fine. Really, it's just here to allow you to complete the science victory as Carthage, or complete the science legacy path rather as Carthage. Prior to this, without the extra codex slots, it's kind of impossible to do, unless of course you build urban centers, and then you can buy libraries in all your towns. So in a way, I also think this has unfortunately been made a little bit redundant as well. You don't really need the codex slots anymore. You'll be drowning in codex slots with all your libraries everywhere. So I think unfortunately, Carthage has got mini nerfed in a few subtle ways by the most recent patch. Urban centers, we're in the urban center meta right now, I think, and so anyone that doesn't play into urban centers has kind of got kicked down a peg, and anyone that is negatively affected by urban centers has probably got kicked down 2 pegs, right? So Carthage, I think, is a really fantastic civ. They set you up really well for the rest of the game with their district, giving you +2 slots on all your towns and everything. I think they have a fantastic quarter. They have this incredible trait with the extra ranged naval units. But I do think that I cannot put them in S tier right now. I think they just don't make good use of urban centers as other civs can. I think that a lot of their traditions here and buffs are buffs for things that aren't the urban center town specialization. So mining towns, fishing and farming towns, and trade outposts. They're just no urban center. What can I say? So unfortunately, I think as a result of this patch, Carthage has got to go in A tier. Next up, we have Egypt. And Egypt, unfortunately, has managed to dodge just about any buffs for several patches now. They really are on struggle street, so let's look at their abilities. +1 production on navigable rivers, and +30% production towards constructing the pyramids. So, look, we're going to get into it here, but Egypt relies a lot on navigable rivers, and absentmindedly, I didn't start on a navigable river here, I started on a minor river. And so right away I would have had to move, it would set me back 1 turn, which isn't a big deal. Just keep in mind that if you're not settling on the navigable river, you're essentially getting no buff from this. Even still, +1 production on navigable rivers just isn't a very impactful bonus. You're not really going to have too many navigable river tiles in your empire. And even if you did, you don't really want to be working them because they aren't productive in the first place. Like, this is meant to sort of circumvent that and mitigate that problem that navigable rivers generally just are a food tile, but it's just not that great, unfortunately. Moving on to, well, let's look at the pyramids. So the pyramids they're an okay wonder. You unlock them from masonry. +1 gold in production on minor and navigable river tiles in this settlement. I think if this was a global effect, the pyramids would be significantly more enticing, but just being in this settlement, again, you're not really going to have too many rivers in your land most of the time, at least not in one settlement. Granted, I have seen some pretty insane river starts, but I think at its best, this might give you, let's say, 10 gold in production, which is pretty good, but not great. I don't think the pyramids are a fantastic wonder, really. They also have to be placed on desert, adjacent to a navigable river, which I wouldn't even be able to do this game. So, you know, the requirements are quite strict for building it. Not ideal, all in all. I don't think Egypt has a desert bias, despite starting near one here. I don't think they just start next to navigable rivers. I'm not sure about a desert, but it's a tough requirement to fulfill. And it doesn't get much better as we go down here. So we have the Medjay. It's a unique infantry unit, has no maintenance, and it gives +3 combat strength in friendly territory, doubled when stationed in a settlement you own. So the Medjay it's a super defensive unit, and it's good. As I said, it has no maintenance, which is nice. So you can just kind of plonk a few of these around your cities and feel a bit better about yourself in terms of how defended you are. +6 combat strength while in a settlement that you own is really good at countering the deity combat bonus. But it's just not great. They don't really, like, you're not really going to be building too many of these. If you are, I mean, sure, they are better on the defense, but struggle to justify really liking these. We do have a civic that interacts with them later on, so we'll talk about them more later. Moving on to their unique unit, this is a great person. So one of the few civs that has a great person they can make. It gets 1 charge. It can only be trained in cities with a necropolis, which is the unique quarter. And these great people, essentially, they're more or less about wonders. I'll put up on the screen here all the different effects they can get. They are really good at building wonders. There's 3, I think, that add production to wonders, which is like the great engineers from Civ 6, which are really great if you remember those. All in all, they're actually a pretty good unit, but they are random. Some of them are, not great, to say the least. So you are rolling the dice when you get these. You're never going to consistently be able to say, I need to finish this wonder urgently. Let me build one of these, tajates or whatever they're called, to quickly rush that along. Because you might make like 6 of them and get nothing you need. So unreliable, but overall quite strong, I would say. Moving on to the necropolis. Let's go through their buildings. So the Mastaba, unique building, +3 culture and +1 gold adjacency for desert terrain and wonders. Egypt kind of pitches itself as a bit of a wonder builder civ, but you'll see that they have a few problems along the way as we go along. But this is okay. +1 gold adjacency for desert terrain is quite strong, and +3 culture as a standard base yield is pretty good too. The mortuary temple, +4 gold and +1 happiness adjacency for navigable rivers and wonders. So again, these requirements don't gel too well unless you're in the specific desert navigable river terrain here. You're probably going to prioritize the gold over the happiness adjacency, but they don't really work very well together, I don't think. A lot of the time, anyway. When you build both of these together, you get the necropolis, and that gives you 100 gold on standard speed when any wonder is completed in this settlement, which is a pretty good bonus, because as I said, Egypt likes to build wonders. They have a few things to help them along with that. And this just kind of fits into the win more category though. This doesn't help you build wonders, but if you get that first wonder going, let's say you manage to build Great Stele and the necropolis, you're going to be getting 300 gold every time you finish a wonder, which is really huge. So it doesn't seem too bad so far. Let's look at their civics. So not much to see here. We have the arrival of Hapi, which is definitely how you say that. That's where you unlock the temple. You have a bonus here. Minor rivers do not end unit movement. It's fine. That's okay. It doesn't really justify a whole civic. +1 food on navigable rivers. That's your unique tradition. That's really terrible. Like, it doesn't scale at all. As always, these things should be per age. I'm not sure why there's so many things, especially Egypt, doesn't get per age on a lot of their stuff. So this is a really bad civic. Scales of Anubis, that's where you unlock the other one, the Mastaba. Medjays generate +1 gold when stationed in a settlement you own. It's okay, like, you're never going to build a Medjay with a +1 gold. You really shouldn't be doing that. It's just a nice thing, if you have Medjays sitting around you had to build anyway, then sure, go station them in your settlements and they can generate a pittance of gold for you. But they should probably be scouting or something, realistically, if you still have land to explore. So an okay, very mid bonus there. And then we have Riches of the Duat, plus 15% production towards constructing wonders. This is a tradition you can keep for the rest of the game, and it's pretty good. Plus 15% production is good, but it's not too crazy. And this is kind of the, looking at their other bonuses, it's probably the best of the bunch, but it's still pretty bad. And then we look at their last one, Light of Amun-Ra, plus 5 gold on the palace. Sure, like again, it's kind of inconsequential. You get plus 1 settlement limit, that's good. Plus 1 culture on navigable rivers, that's not bad, but again, you just don't get many of those tiles. And then you unlock the pyramids there as well. This is also a weird civ where the pyramids, so you would have to get through 3 traditions to get here. If we look on the science tree, it only takes 2 technologies to get to masonry, so really doesn't make much sense why the pyramids is so far back. This tree should definitely just, I think Egypt kind of needs a full rework, to be honest. A lot of this stuff needs to be buffed, and this should probably start out as the first one, I think. If this was the first one that led to these 2, then that would probably be better as a start, but should probably move that wonder constructing one into this civic as well. It just needs a lot of work. Egypt civics are basically garbage. These are really bad, and none of these effects are too great. You're never going to bring this culture on navigable rivers one. Again, it's just a flat culture, 1 culture, not per age. What are they doing? Plus 1 food, you're not going to be bringing these into the next stage. So all these traditions you get are completely worthless, I would say. Fortunately, I think Egypt continues to be probably the worst civ in Antiquity. Not at the end of the list yet, but I think I'm pretty confident in saying that. So Egypt, unfortunately, you can go straight down to D tier. Moving over to Greece, we have an absolute powerhouse of a civ on our hands here, so let's get into it. Their bonus starting off is plus 3 influence per turn on the palace, which if you're new to the game, this might sound a little not great. But trust me, this is a really good bonus. So you start out, plus 10 is the default influence you get. So plus 3 right off the bat is a 30% increase to your influence generation. And keep in mind, influence is pretty much the strongest yield in the game. It's the rarest, but it's very valuable, and it can save you from wars diplomatically. So with war support, it can put you ahead through city-states and influencing those and snatching those from people by tacking on a ton of influence. It's a really strong yield, and getting plus 3 from the start is a lot better than it sounds. They also get plus 30% production towards constructing the Oracle. The fact that their unique wonder, well, not unique, but their associated wonder is the Oracle is probably one of the worst parts about Greece. The Oracle is it's a pretty stinky wonder in my opinion. I wouldn't really ever try to build that, or at least rush it, unless you just needed to finish the legacy path. I wouldn't build it for its effects, put it that way. The unique unit is the Hoplite. Gains plus 2 combat strength if adjacent to another hoplite, and that's it. Pretty straightforward, but a decent bonus. I mean, plus 2 combat strength isn't great, and it doesn't stack, so you can't put like 5 hoplites all sort of touching one guy and get plus 10 combat strength. It doesn't work, unfortunately. So it's plus 2 combat strength flat, but it's a very easy condition to fulfill, and you're always travel these guys in pairs basically. A decent unit, but nothing to write home about. Skip past their great person for now. We'll go down to their buildings. They have a unique quarter. It's built with the Odeon, which has plus 3 happiness and plus 1 culture adjacency for quarters and wonders. Culture adjacency from quarters is really great because you're going to be building quarters throughout the game. This building's just going to get better and better as you fill up everything around it. Really good stuff. And then they have the Parthenon, plus 4 culture and plus 2 influence if placed on rough terrain. So again, more influence. This is one of the few buildings in the game that generates influence, so really fantastic. And plus 4 culture as a default yield. But it gets better. Plus 1 culture adjacency for wonders. Well, not much better, alright, but it does get better. So this is a fantastic building, just as it is. Always build this on rough terrain if you can. The plus 2 influence is so good. Moving on to their unique quarter though, the Acropolis. Which, apart from looking fantastic, by the way, I might put up a picture here of the way it looks. It's a beautiful unique quarter, as they all are. Unique quarters are one of the best parts of Civ 7. But anyway, created by constructing those 2 buildings in the same district, this district gets plus 2 gold for each city-state you are suzerain of. Luckily, you're going to be generating a ton of influence, and you have one of the best traditions in the game for that as well, probably the best. You are going to be getting, this is going to generate a lot of gold for you if you sort of play your cards right and get a bit lucky as well. Coming back to the unique great person though, again, one of the few civs that has a great person. It can only be trained in cities with a necropolis, the unique quarter, and the logios you get is random. I'll put up the effects on screen. They are okay, but they really vary, these great people. They're so different in what they do that it's almost impossible to try and play around their effects. So their effects are generally good, I would say. There's one in there, I think, that gives you a free celebration, which I'd say is one of the better ones, just to get a free social policy slot, basically. But all in all, they're okay, but I don't think they're too crazy. A lot of them are just really solid. They give you decent buffs, but nothing too outrageous. Moving on to their unique civics, we have some really good stuff in here. We're starting off with one of the best. So we unlock the Odeon, the happiness and culture, which is good. But tradition here, plus 50% influence towards the initiating and progressing the Befriend Independent project. It's worded a bit strange, but this is befriend is the action you use on city-states to make them your suzerain. So this works for both the initial action and when you add on the extra influence to make it go faster. You essentially get a 50%, well, it's not half, but it's a 50% influence towards it, which I think works out to about a third. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this is such a fantastic card. This is going to save you hundreds of influence in Antiquity and thousands across the game, really. Really good card for just snatching up all of those city-states around you quicker than everyone else, which is going to generate a ton of gold from your unique quarter, the Necropolis. Really good stuff. A fantastic card that this single tradition carries a lot of power in the Greek Civ. Moving down to the Mastery. +2 culture for active endeavors, sanctions, and projects you started or supported. Again, a bit of a nothing bonus. You do have a way to sort of benefit from this a bit more later, but don't rush this. You can get this like last if you want, but by the time you get this last, +2 culture is not going to be doing much. You're not probably going to be supporting many endeavors. You can because you have a lot of influence, but you're going to be using that in the early game to befriend city-states mainly, or defend yourself from wars. +2 culture just doesn't really provide enough juice for the influence you have to put in to get use out of this. Moving down to Agog, which was a card in Civ 6 actually, one of the ones that made you produce units faster, I think. So it's made its return. That's where you get the Parthenon, fantastic building, and you get another tradition here, Strategoy, which gives you plus 25% army commander experience, just generally, which is, if you're going to go to war, really great. Army commanders are such a huge chunk of your power level. This card just makes them 25% better, basically. Really good tradition, really good stuff. Hoplites gain +1 combat strength for each city-state you are suzerain of. A really good card. You are going to be getting a lot of city-states. Now, granted, the power level of Greece does somewhat scale with the map you're on. If you're on a huge map, which might have like 10 to 15 city-states, maybe you're playing on Pangaea, so you can see the whole map in one go, basically. You don't have to go to distant lands and worry about all that. You can get, on a huge map, like, as I said, like 10 to 15 city-states, and maybe you as Greece can secure 8 or 9 of those. Your hoplites are going to be insanely strong. Keep in mind they also get +2 combat strength for being next to each other. Your hoplites are probably going to be stronger than the AI's units, which is insane. The combat bonus is going to get completely nullified once you got a few of these going. Just a really strong bonus. Again, this is very much the economy path up here and very much the domination path down here, but they both provide such strong benefits for what they're trying to do, except for this one. You can ignore that one. But moving on to their final civic, Samachia. +2 culture for each city-state you're suzerain of. You get that one for free, so you don't have to slot anything in. Pretty solid. Again, you're going to be getting a few of these. So this is just going to be a nice chunk of change of when it comes to culture. Really good for a bit of a freebie. And it comes with +1 settlement limit, which is nice too. Really nice, actually. Love settlement limit increases. And down here we have the worst Greek mastery. Possibly it rivals this one for how kind of not good it is. And these are your traditions you get to keep throughout the rest of the game too. +30% influence towards initiating endeavors, and the same for sanctions. I don't think I've I've sanctioned anyone in this game except for like my mate when I was playing with him, just to make him really mad. You shouldn't really be using sanctions too much as they are right now. Endeavors is fine, but you're not going to be probably initiating too many by the time you have surplus influence to be doing that sort of thing. The amount of like sex culture you'll be getting from initiating an endeavor isn't very good. So saving a tiny amount of influence on those endeavors isn't amazing, isn't really worth the slot. This is also the mastery that unlocks the Oracle, which again is kind of weird because this comes quite late. It only takes 2 civics to get to the Oracle through the standard civic tree. It takes 1 to minimum 4 civics to get to it here. So really strange placement. You're going to get to it through public life faster in most cases, I would say. Yeah, even if this was like right up the start here, I still probably wouldn't build the Oracle, to be honest. It's not a very good wonder in my opinion. We got a bit negative towards the end there, but Greece is a very strong civ. I would say they can comfortably move into the A tier. I think city-states are just really strong right now. They've added a few new city-state bonuses as well. The ones that give, say, +1 science or +1 culture, depending on the city-state, to all of your warehouse buildings is really strong. Really, really strong in Antiquity. So if you, for example, manage to get a bit of a dream run and you get, say, a science and a culture city-state nearby, and you befriend those, and you get the one that gives you a free tech every time you get a new city-state, you can easily get, like, 7, 8, 9 free technologies and civics as you befriend everyone else. And all of your warehouse buildings can be getting, +1 science on them. You can have, like, 40 or 50 of those in your empire if you buy them in all your towns. A really insane civ. Greece is going to scale up and down in power level depending on how good city-state bonuses are. Just so happens that right now, city-state bonuses are really, really strong. I think I may actually go ahead and move Greece up to S tier, now that I think about it on second thought. I think they're one of my favorite civs. I should also note that Greece has a rough terrain bias, so they can build their buildings to get that influence, the +2 influence on rough terrain. Not a great example of it here, because I think Trung Truck kind of overrid it, but rough terrain is really good. That's production terrain, and production's great as a general rule. So yeah, I'm gonna put Greece in S tier. Greece is one of my favorites to play. I really like playing the city-states, so yeah, Greece, S tier civ. Not Daily Civ 7 News, you are my favorite YouTuber and your voice is amazing. You have the best opinions, they're so correct, and your tier list is the most accurate I've ever seen. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. So moving on to the Han, we have their ability. Their capital and new towns gain an additional population with their first growth event, which is pretty good. It lets towns get off to a quicker start. Same for their capital. Nothing too crazy, but I think it's okay, especially for claiming space if you are in a really tight-knit map. And they get plus 30% production towards the Wei Young Palace, which is a pretty good wonder to be fair. It gives +6 influence. Not bad. Not bad at all. A unique unit is the Chuko Nu, which makes a return from Civ 5. Unfortunately, it can't fire twice like that one could. It's their unique range unit, has zone of control and a high defense strength, +5 combat strength when attacking adjacent units. It's a really good unit. It is basically a strictly better range unit. The zone of control is nice, but not too crazy. But the high defense strength and +5 combat strength in essentially melee, it makes this one sort of be able to go toe-to-toe with melee units, rather than having to hide behind another unit itself. A really strong unit. So this is great. Range units are already fantastic. The Chukonu is just a straight-up improvement. Good stuff. The unique great person is the Shi Dafu. It's a great person with 1 charge, and it can only be trained in the capital when it has at least 10 population. And these are all random. I'll put them up on the screen, but the Shi Dafu are essentially, from what I remember, basically just all give science in one form or another. So I think there's one that gives a codex in there. Maybe it boosts your libraries to be better, but essentially these all just give science. So you never have to worry too much about when to use them or timing them in any specific manner. They are always going to be good whenever you build them. But again, I don't think the effects of these are ever too crazy, these great people. So I don't prioritize them too much unless I have nothing else to build, really. But all in all, a solid sort of production stopgap. Their unique building is, of course, the Great Wall. It gives +2 culture and +1 happiness for adjacent Great Wall segments. So once you got the chain going, these are essentially going to give +2 culture and +2 happiness on every single one, except for the ones at the end. They count as fortification. They get +6 units on them, get +6 combat strength when defending. They do not remove warehouse bonuses on a tile. So I mentioned this before, but not removing warehouse bonuses on a tile is a super strong effect, but it just is worded so poorly, and most people probably don't know what that means. It just means that you essentially get to keep the yields of the tile, even though you build over the top of a farm or over the top of a quarry, that sort of thing. A really strong effect. Can only be built in a line and must be placed on an existing improvement, and it cannot branch or fork. So you have to build it in a line, essentially, as you can kind of imagine a wall in real life. So as a defensive improvement for, actually stationing units and that sort of thing, it works all right, but it's, a bit clunky. It's kind of hard to define the battle lines like that, such that you'll actually be fighting on your Great Wall. But it's a nice sort of side effect. The real benefit here is that this is just a cultural powerhouse of a unit, of a building, sorry. I mean, if you can get a really big line of these things going, and if you're playing the Han, you probably should be thinking from turn 1 about how you can build a really long Great Wall. You can generate a ton of culture with these things. So a really good improvement. I'll move over to their civics now. We have their first one, which unlocks the Great Wall. In addition to this, science buildings gain a +1 science adjacency for quarters, which is really good. Particularly if you do have, talk about urban centers a lot here, but just in general, this is going to be +1 science on pretty much all of your libraries at a minimum. If you have a granary and a saw pit next to it, for example, really good stuff. They also get their +1 settlement limit right at the start here on their first civic. I would probably suggest you get this civic really early on. Getting +1 settlement limit that quick is fantastic, and I think they're the only civ that does that. Might be proven wrong as I keep going through the tier list, but I'm pretty sure that's right. This is a fantastic civic and a really good one you want to get early on. Moving on, we have the Li. That gives you +2 influence on the palace and +1 influence on science buildings. This is really great. As I said, influence is a tricky yield to come across. There's very few sources of it in general in the game. So this civic just on its own is going to give you a ton of science, and it is a tradition. And +1 influence, no, it doesn't scale per age, but +1 influence on science buildings is actually still pretty decent in exploration. Less so modern, but it carries well. +1 influence is good. And you're going to have science buildings in every single settlement you own. This is going to generate probably in the realm of sort of 10 to 30, I guess is a big range, but a decent chunk of influence for you, which is really great. Moving down here, we have Yi, which gives the Chukanu an additional +5 combat strength when defending. Again, makes these units into absolute tanks for a range unit being able to dish out that much damage when you're that close and essentially have the defense of a melee unit. It's really fantastic. And the second part here gives that same influence bonus on happiness buildings, which aren't as great because happiness buildings aren't as good as science buildings, particularly if you're the Han. Han is all about science. Not as good, but still, this is really great for the combat bonus here. And their last civic is pretty fantastic. +10% science in the capital, just a flat bonus you get. And their tradition is +1 science from specialists, which is pretty solid as well. +1 science is good early, so this one doesn't translate well later, but a really good bonus in this early age. And this is also where you unlock the Wei Young Palace. As I said, it gives +6 influence, a pretty solid wonder, and you get to keep that influence gain for the rest of the game, so not bad, but nothing too crazy here. All in all, I think the Han are kind of understated. I think they're probably better than they sound, and they were a civ I put off playing for a long time because if you look at their bonuses on the outset, they don't seem very good, to be honest, but they actually are. I think science is really fantastic as a yield. It controls how well you can go to war. It controls how well you can defend yourself from other wars. Great way to get more wildcard points from finishing future tech, obviously. Same for Civic, but I find generally science is going to be the way you're going to go on the Han, obviously. Either way, what I'm getting at here is that they don't seem very strong, but trust me, when you play them, they do feel strong. The Great Wall is such a fantastic improvement. and it will single-handedly carry your culture for the Civ in this age. And the good news is it's ageless, which means you're going to have a huge leg up on culture when the age transitions and your Great Wall is still giving you +2 culture per tile, which is really awesome. One of the few civs that has such a good, unique improvement that you probably want to keep throughout the game. So yeah, the Han, I think, a really good civ, a really solid science civ. I can go happily in the A tier. Okay, up next we have the Khmer, which is my understanding of how that a civ is pronounced. And their ability is that districts on rivers do not remove the natural yield of that tile. This is a really fantastic early game bonus. The amount of just straight up yields this gives you in the early game, where 1 or 2 food and 1 or 2 production is at its best, is insane. You don't realize, I guess, just how many yields are lost from building your districts over rivers. Note, however, I will say, in my experience, I've played about 4 games with the Khmer, and I've never actually started next to a river, which is a big problem because pretty much all the bonuses revolve around rivers. Even better would be navigable or floodplains, rather. Any rivers that flood, they're really fantastic on those. But I'm not sure if they just have a really weak bias towards rivers and floodplains, but in 4 games, I've never once started on any notable river terrain. So take the bonus with a pinch of salt. I think if they were able to guarantee a river start, they would be a lot better, to be honest. But not by much, unfortunately. Despite all the changes to food and specialists, I do think the Khmer still fall quite flat. We'll move on to their unit. The unique unit is a cavalry unit, and it has high combat strength but slower movement, so I believe that goes down to 2 movement rather than the usual 3 for cavalry. And it is immune to flood damage, and it ignores zone of control. Pretty whatever bonuses. The high combat strength is good, but I mean, less movement does hurdle a fair bit. Immune to flood damage is very whatever. It's a very niche bonus, and there's a few of those throughout. A pretty good unit, don't get me wrong, but these bonuses just aren't relevant most of the time. Their unique unit is a unique merchant, and it's the civilian who can establish a trade route just like a merchant. The only difference between this and a regular merchant is that, once again, it ignores flood damage, which is very rarely going to happen, although it'll feel great if it did. And it ignores the movement penalties from wet terrain, which is pretty useless as well. It just means your merchant's going to get to wherever it's going maybe 1 or 2 turns faster in most circumstances. So this, to be honest, it may as well not exist. This is just a merchant in 99% of cases. And their unique building is the Beret, and it is ageless. It does not remove warehouse bonuses on a tile, and it must be placed on an existing improvement on flat terrain. You only get 1 per settlement. It gives +3 food and +1 food on all floodplains in this settlement. This is what I was talking about when I said they're really good on floodplains. Improvements, buildings, and districts in the settlement do not get pillaged by floods. So they actually changed this quite recently, got a bit of a buff, and it's pretty decent now as an improvement. If you do have a lot of floodplains around you, you just need to build the Beret in each of your cities that could get flooded, and they're immune to floods for the rest of the game. This is ageless, it affects you permanently. So as a improvement for its longevity, fantastic. This is a really good improvement. Yes, it doesn't really give you many yields, so +3 food and 1 food on all floodplains is okay. I mean, that could be a reasonable amount of food if you do have a lot of floodplains, obviously. But it's not going to scale very well. It is a nice burst of food when you get it, though, but really, the fact that it keeps that settlement immune to flood damage for the rest of the game is what really wins this one over for me. So the Beret, a fantastic buff to what was probably the worst unique improvement in the game before. Now I think it's maybe not one of the best, but certainly one of the most interesting. And I think we need more flavor like this, to be honest, from civs. So I really like the Beret. Moving over to their civic tree, we have the first one here, Mao Song. Apologies for the pronunciation again. That's where you unlock the Beret. And you can see here as well, improvements, buildings, and districts do not get pillaged by floods. So you may think this has a lot of overlap with the Beret, and it does. The Beret is essentially just future-proofing you, so this means as soon as you get this tradition, all of your improvements, buildings, and districts in all of your settlements do not get pillaged by floods, full stop. The Beret will last beyond this. This isn't a tradition. You can't carry this effect into the next age. So the beret doubles up here, but it future-proofs all of the ones you built the beret in future ages. A bit of a weird one. It's a bit clunky, to be honest, but it does what it says on the tin, so it's something. The tradition you get from this is +4 combat strength for units on floodplains. Such a niche bonus. It's just I mean, making use of this is so difficult, and you can never really guarantee when a conflict is going to happen or where. In theory, it's good on the defense if you are defending and you have a lot of floodplains around you, but it's just really hard to make use of, so kind of a useless tradition, to be honest. After that, we have that your unique cavalry unit there, the elephant, gets +1 movement, so that restores it back to the 3 movement, which is pretty decent. Not bad. Not a bad effect. They get +1 gold from specialists as their tradition, which is okay. +1 gold isn't like anything to write home about, really, but it's decent. It's a nice bonus. And it plays into what you'll see sort of as we go along here a bit more as well. The Khmer are meant to be all about specialists. Unfortunately, specialists did get a bit of a nerf in this patch, so a bit of a notch down there for a civ that was already really struggling. However, we do have a tradition coming up here that is really, really good. This is also where they unlock Angkor Wat, which is really fantastic because Angkor Wat isn't unlocked until philosophy in the regular Antiquity Civic tree. And Angkor Wat is a really good wonder, so being able to pick this one up essentially as a guarantee, you can get this whenever you want, because it'll take everyone else, about 100 turns to get to philosophy generally. This is really great. So getting Angkor Wat, +1 specialist limit in this settlement, that's all it does, and 3 happiness as well. +1 specialist limit is really good. Having 10 specialists on 1 tile is significantly better than 10 specialists on 10 tiles. The reason for that is that when the age transitions and specialists will essentially get deactivated because they're in quarters with obsolete buildings that you need to overbuild, it means that once you overbuild those 2 buildings and get it back to a district of this age, all 10 of those specialists come online a lot quicker than if you had to overbuild in 10 districts, which is 20 buildings. Much slower. So Angkor Wat is a really good wonder for that reason. But moving on, we have their last civic here, +50% growth rate in the capital and -5 happiness in every other city, which is a bit of a weird one, but this does, it sounds a bit dodgy at first, sounds like a bit of a downside, but this is actually quite good. So realistically, as the Khmer, you're gonna want to build a large capital with a lot of specialists, if it's not obvious already. Angkor Wat helps you with that a lot. It means you're going to be focusing mainly on towns, which is good. We like towns with the most recent patch with urban centers. So you're not going to have too many other cities. So realistically, you might have, I'd probably aim for about 3 cities in Antiquity as the Khmer. So you're only going to have -10 happiness from this. And as a benefit from that, 50% growth rate in the capital, which is pretty huge. So that's good. Second to this, though, we have an awesome tradition, one of the best in the game, the best in the game for specialists, +100% food and happiness towards maintaining specialists. And this does make them free. Again, the wording here and the numbers are always a bit confusing. Essentially is a half price. So a specialist by default takes 2 food and 2 happiness to maintain. This brings them down to 1 food and 1 happiness, which is huge. That's quite a bit of food and happiness spread out over your empire. A really good card. And of note that all of the other specialist maintenance cards and policy nodes and whatnot in the other ages in the leader tree got nerfed, pretty much cut in half. The Khmer's one did not get touched. So this one has stayed extremely relevant. It's probably, I would say, in addition to getting Angkor Wat as a guarantee, the reason why you would pick the Khmer is to have this card for the rest of the game, to halve the cost of all your specialists. Really good stuff. It's a really good tradition and almost single-handedly saves the Khmer from being completely useless, I would say. And the last mastery here gives +3 codex slots in the palace. Who cares? This is just to get around the fact that you won't have many cities, so in theory you wouldn't have many codex slots, but you'll have more than enough codex slots to finish the Science Legacy path, especially now with urban centers and getting libraries there. That this is completely useless. I would never even bother to unlock this, so don't take this ever. Spend your culture elsewhere. So the Khmer overall, I think they're still a bit rough. I think the fact that specialists, in patch 1.2.1, the tall playstyle got made a lot better was good for the Khmer, but they're still in a really rough spot. I think probably 80% of their power is in this single civic right here. Maybe 10% of their power is in Angkor Wat, and the other 10% is in the Bray, just making you immune to flood damage for the rest of the game. At least in your key cities, that's really good. But other than that, they don't really have a lot going for them. I mean, their effect is really good too, don't get me wrong. It lets you off to a really strong start, but I think they're still lacking. And of note here, and this is a huge, huge downside, one of the few civs, I think the only other civ, to not have a settlement limit increase anywhere in their civic tree, because they're meant to be around building tall cities rather than going wide, and having lots of towns or cities supporting you. They don't get any settlement limit increases from their civic tree, which is seriously, seriously rough. When you're playing it, it just feels like you never get any chance to expand, basically. You'll find yourself stuck at that kind of 4 to 5 city range for most of the age, and it feels really, really bad. So, unfortunately, to end on a negative note, the Khmer have to go into the D tier. Next up is Maurya, India, and this is definitely my favorite civ in Antiquity. I really enjoy playing these people. Their ability is that they can choose an additional pantheon after unlocking mysticism. Really simple and really fun. Mysticism is how you unlock your pantheon in general, so this just means at the same time you would get it otherwise, you get 2 beliefs, which is really strong. And there's just lots of interesting combos you can play around with. So a really strong bonus and a really fun one. I really do enjoy this civ. Right off the bat, it's a good start. And then we have the unique unit after this, which is like, it's like it's the Khmer unit that your girl tells you not to worry about. This one is so much better than Khmer's one, in my opinion. +5 combat strength against fortified districts is really good. Also ignores zone of control, which, to be fair, I'm pretty sure all cavalry does this by default, but +5 combat strength against districts is really great. It just helps you. The AI loves to build walls. If they see you coming, in fact, I'm pretty sure deity AI builds walls by default, like they get them for free at the start. This just gives you +5 combat strength to knock those down. It's really strong. It's a fantastic unit, and yeah, not much more to say. It's really good. Maurya also gets a unique settler, which is always fun. And it is the exact same as a regular settler, but the city hall, which is the town hall, it's the thing you found when you use their ability, gets +2 happiness. Very simple, but Maurya really likes happiness, and we'll see a bit more on that as we go along. Simple, but hey, it's free happiness and pretty decent. So Maurya gets a unique quarter, and I love unique quarters, so it's a green flag straight away. We move down to their buildings. They have +3 happiness and +1 science adjacency for quarters and wonders. And this is the unique happiness building, yep. And the other one gives +3 happiness and +1 culture adjacency for mountains and wonders. If you build these both in the same district, they have the Amartha, and the city, or the settlement, gets +10 happiness, which is really solid. +10%, I should say, rather. Which, again, a little bit worse early game, but again, you keep this bonus for the whole game. And +10% happiness on, say 4 or 5 cities is going to be a ton of happiness throughout the game. Note that both of these buildings are also happiness buildings. They give culture and science, depending on the conditions around them, but regardless, it's a lot of happiness. And happiness is great. Happiness is more celebrations. Happiness is going over the settlement cap without really worrying. Really good stuff. I should note as well that +1 science JC for quarters and wonders means it's not too hard to get this up to, at least +2, +3 science by just filling up the districts around it. If we move over to their civic tree, this is when things start to get very interesting when it comes to the happiness synergy. The first civic unlocks both buildings. Amazing. So you only need to unlock this one civic and you can run away with your quarter, which is awesome. +3 happiness on science buildings is the tradition they get here. You're going to want to be building your science buildings. Obviously, buildings are good. This just gives you even more happiness on top of that. Again, more celebrations, more settlements. It's good. It's really good stuff. Moving on. The units adjacent to your unique elephant unit, your unique cavalry, heal for +5 HP per turn, which is decent. It's a little bit niche, but this is really good, particularly in enemy territory, which you're probably going to be in if you're sieging down districts with them. It just means you can keep your units in the fight a little bit longer. They become a bit more spongy when you're healing up for +10 rather than +5 in enemy territory next to an elephant, which is really good. You also get our first taste at our happiness scaling tradition here. +1 gold for every 5 surplus happiness in cities. Doesn't sound like much, but you are going to have a lot of surplus happiness in cities, which is great to get a benefit from that, because usually if you reach that point where your celebrations are just never ending, then happiness becomes a bit useless. But with Maurya, there's always a benefit to getting more happiness, which is awesome. Onto the other civic, we have infantry and cavalry units gain +3 combat strength when adjacent to each other. More buffs for the elephant. +3 combat strength on both of the units you're going to want to have on the front lines is amazing. Paired with this, they become really, really tanky, and it lets your ranged units behind them essentially just fire freely for a very long time. Your units will easily be able to outlast the enemy's units, which is great. And another happiness bonus here, +1 happiness on military buildings. If you're building lots of elephants, you're probably going to be building lots of military buildings, which give production anyway, so they're really fantastic. This just gives you more happiness, which gives you more gold, which gives you more science, as we'll get to here. So, +10% to all yields in settlements not founded by you. If you thought that Maurya was a peaceful civ about staying happy, keeping your people happy, building up your science and gold, you are wrong. You get heavily rewarded for using your elephants to trample all over your neighbors. +10% to all yields is a really strong bonus, so you do want to be taking settlements where you can with Maurya. They become really, really powerful. You get your +1 settlement limit. It's right at the end here, which isn't great, but at least you get one. And we see here, again, a fantastic tradition. I mentioned it earlier, so yeah. Similar to the gold one, +1 gold for every 5 surplus happiness in cities. Similarly, you get +1 science for every 5 surplus happiness in cities, which is really great. Again, keep your cities happy and they will get showered with gold and science. It's a fantastic playstyle. And the wonder they unlock is the Sunshine Stupa, which is an interesting one because it is quite deep in the tree, so you'd think this isn't too bad. +1 culture for every 5 excess happiness in this settlement. Synergizes obviously perfectly with Maurya, so you do want to be building this for a ton of culture, because that's the one bonus they don't get from anything else. The Sanchi feels that need. I will note though, having done the 21 Wonder Challenge in Antiquity, the AI does not rush this at all. This tends to be the last wonder that the AI will go for. Even when they're way down here, they don't tend to prioritize getting this mastery unlocked for some reason. So Sunshine Stupa is basically the safest wonder in the game, but hey, it means in theory you don't have to unlock this mastery, which you don't really want to be doing anyway, because I mean, unless you have a lot of city-states, even if you do, this civic isn't very good, and the Wonder Construction project, you're not going to be running that, so it lets you get Sunshine Stupa without researching this mastery, which I guess is nice. But regardless, this is such a fantastic civic tree. Pretty much every single bonus in here is useful in one way or another towards what they want to be doing, which is taking over their neighbors where they can, but keeping, despite the wars, a very, very happy population and getting rewarded for doing that. Maurya is, I think, I've probably made them sound a bit stronger than they are, that they aren't broken, they're just really, really good at what they do. And I think their quarter for the +10% happiness throughout the game is a pretty decent effect. But I can't afford to put them in S tier. They are so strong, but they don't break the game in any particular way. They're just really good at maintaining happy cities, which is strong, but not game breaking. So Maurya can go in A tier. And next up we have the Maya. And Maya, far and away the most controversial civ if you played at the launch of the game. This civ was completely busted, and I'll talk about why when we get there, but Maya's changed in one very significant way. Regardless, let's start with their abilities. They're still really strong. The Palace gains 0.5 science for adjacent vegetated terrain. And I find that Maya's very, very heavily biased. I've never not gotten vegetated terrain in tropical territory. So you can see we always start with an absolute ton of science. Again, it doesn't seem like much, and this bonus only affects you at the very start of the game because it only affects your palace. But I'm starting off here with 12 science instead of 10, which is a 20% increase right from turn 1. So pretty insane. Do not underestimate how much tempo this gives you. Again, early yields are better than yields later, and this is as early as it gets. So this is a really good bonus. And they get plus 30% production towards constructing Mundo Perdido, which is a really solid wonder. We'll quickly peek into their civic tree here. Plus 1 happiness and science on tropical terrain in this settlement, and must be placed on tropical. Really easy condition to fulfill. As I said, you're pretty much always, in my experience, going to start in tropical as Maya. So you have no issue placing this, and it's a really good wonder. It's going to give you a ton of science. It makes every single one of these tropical tiles just really, really valuable, essentially. It is much like it's the Petra for tropical terrain. That's how I would describe it, and it's really good. Next up, their unit is the Holche, and it can see through, it replaces their Slinger and Archer. It's their range unit. Can see through vegetation and ignores movement penalties from vegetated terrain. This is really solid. Vegetated terrain often gets in the way of ranged units, and being able to see through it, you'd be surprised how often you realize, you kind of forget this unit has this ability, and then you go to fire at something and you realize you can actually hit a lot more targets than you think. It's really solid. That and it ignoring the penalty from them means you can like kite melee units through vegetated terrain really easily, and it's really fun to do. So it's a really good unit. For the spawn location you've got, this is great on defense, and if you're attacking someone with a lot of vegetated terrain, which chances are a lot of people have vegetated terrain because there's a lot of tiles that are vegetated in Civ 7, this is great in that situation too. And the fact that it replaces slingers right from the start of the tech tree is really great. You get this as your first tech in theory, so a really good unit all round. But the Maya actually get 2 unique units. They don't get a unique civilian unit, but they get something even better, I would say in most cases. They get a unique scout. So you're going to start most games by building at least 1 scout. I typically build 3 on standard maps. With the new huge maps, I feel like you could probably build almost 4 or 5, to be honest, considering how big they are, but unique scouts are really good. The problem with scouts in Civ 7 is that they can't fight. The Mayan Jaguar Slayer can fight. It's a scout that has combat capabilities, and it's basically as strong as a warrior. It is a warrior replacement that can move through terrain very easily. It's really fantastic. Replacing a scout is always amazing. Keep in mind they also have this ability to place a Jaguar trap. It's a unique one. So they get 1 charge, and the tile they're standing on, they put down a trap. If a unit steps on that tile, it deals 25 damage and it ends their movement for the turn, which is really really niche. I've never actually managed to pull this off. The trap is invisible to enemy units, so in theory this should be kind of decent to lay around your land, but I've never managed to pull it off. The ability recharges 5 turns after placing a trap, so you can place multiple of these, but yeah, it's not the most useful. I will say they did with patch 1.2.2, if you played the Maya before and you thought, oh great, I'm going to place a bunch of these traps, around my land, so if someone tries to invade me, they'll get trapped and it'll be really hard to invade me. And then you found that you actually can't place buildings on top of the Jaguar trap, and there's no way to remove it. So as soon as you put down a Jaguar trap, you made that tile useless for the rest of the age for yourself. They fixed that. You can now build buildings over the top of Jaguar traps, so amazing. That's low-key makes me want to actually use these traps now, to be honest, because before you would just never place them. Unless you place them in your enemy's land, which was one of the most toxic things you could do. They have a unique quarter, Maya, and it is one hell of a unique quarter. This is what broke the game for basically the first month of the game's release. We'll get down to the buildings first. So plus 3 happiness and plus 1 culture adjacency for quarters and wonders. Nothing too crazy here. They have a unique science building, which is pretty rare. Plus 3 science and plus 2 science if placed on vegetation. Already basically a plus 5 building by default, which is amazing. And then plus 1 science JC for wonders. So you even get the adjacency possibility to go higher. With Mundo, you're pretty much always going to guarantee at least 1 plus 6, but just getting +5 flat science on every single one of your, unique science buildings is really amazing. If you build these both together and you get their unique quarter, every single time you research a technology, every single settlement that has one of these unique quarters gains production equal to 5% of that technology's cost. Now, Civ 7 is very annoying, and without mods, I can't actually tell you how much science it takes to research these. So, why have they not added that information? But it's a decent amount. It is a really solid amount of production throughout the game. I should note, so this used to be 20% of the technology's cost, which was ridiculous. It would be like, you'd easily be one-turning wonders in the late game. So the reason this is so good, yes, it's nowhere near as good as it once was. It used to be 4 times as good. But in the late game, techs can cost, thousands of science. So gaining 5% of that is usually enough to finish whatever you're building by that point. It essentially means that you want to get as many of these unique quarters up as you physically can in Antiquity. 3 is solid, 4 is great. If you can get 5 of these, you've probably won the game if you can just survive, which is quite easy to do with, your fantastic units up here. This is far and away the best unique quarter in the game. It's not even close. This is insane. Even at 5%, it is completely ridiculous. We've seen people get turn 7 science victories using this district because they can just finish a tech every single turn, which instantly finishes everything you're building in all these cities. It's insane. This quarter, you play around this quarter if you're playing Maya. I'm pretty sure they were banned in like multiplayer for ages until they fixed this. I'm not sure what they're like now, but at least in single player, far and away, this is insane. Build these quarters and you will win. To be honest, if that was all Maya had, they would be a really good civ, but they of course do have a civic tree. And if we look at it, it's pretty decent as well. So the first one here unlocks the Jalor, which is their happiness and culture building. The Holche and Jaguar Slayers gain stealth in vegetated terrain. Kind of a nice bonus. You won't really notice this when you're playing against the AI. Sometimes I feel like the AI can actually see you when you're in stealth. I don't often get the vibe that they can't see me when I'm sneaking through vegetated terrain. But in theory, it's there, and in theory, it's nice. You get a tradition here, Miracles of the Twins. All units gain the Poison ability, which gives you +3 combat strength against wounded units. This is pretty strong. I mean, most units are going to be wounded after their first hit, obviously, so generally this is just a +3 combat strength buff to all of your units, which is pretty decent. I just wish that this one was actually a bit more flavorful. The Poison ability, quite clearly, I think, was meant to be the unit you hit these, if you hit a unit, they would become poison and take damage over time. I'm not sure why they shied away from that. Maybe they couldn't find out a way to make that work, but this really, I think, should be, should poison enemies. Regardless, I'm arguing about something that doesn't exist. This is a good card. Onto their other mastery, or other civic here. This is where you get your science building. And you also get the effect here that the altar gains a +1 science adjacency from vegetated terrain. Again, more science. It's just so fantastic. This is going to let you finish those techs faster to get more production, and it even gets better after that. I'll show you the next one is insane. But you're going to be putting a fair few altars in Antiquity, and this just makes them even better, which is great. And they have another tradition here, Pet Cot, and it gives +1 science on vegetated terrain in cities. Another fantastic thing, as you can see here, everything is about science for Maya, and it works really well. +1 science in vegetated terrain is strong. It's really strong early. It's okay at the start of exploration, and it falls off in modern. But the tempo you get from this in Antiquity is really, really insane. It's going to help you to build up so much quicker than everyone else. Your science will be ahead of the deity AIs, even with all their bonuses as Maya. They are just that good. And then it only gets better. Calendar round. I usually rush straight for this. I ignore my religion when I'm playing the Maya and go straight for calendar round. I start the game and I click this. You can queue it up. After researching a technology, gain culture equal to 10% of that technology's cost. And after studying a civic, gain science equal to 10% of that civic's cost. So everything in Maya just works. Like you get science, which lets you finish your civics faster, which rushes you through the civic tree, which from unlocking those gives you science, which finishes everything you're building, which gives you more buildings to get more science, which finishes your civics, and it just keeps going round and round. I love the name of this one too, Calendar Round, because it just feels like Maya is so circular. Everything feeds back in on itself so perfectly. It's amazing. This civic is also where you unlock Mundo. Note that it is very, very fast to get Mundo through this mastery here as well, so if you can get it, it's really fantastic, and I would try to get it where you can because it's so good on Maya, but it is hard. The AI does like to prioritize this one. And lastly, we have their mastery. They get their settlement limit quite late, but that's okay because it's a bit of a doozy, this one. They get +2 science on happiness buildings as a tradition, and the same for culture as well, +2 culture on happiness buildings. These are both really good. Again, it just, everything works well with them. Build these happiness buildings, you're essentially getting +4 of a really good pairing of yields here. What a civic tree. I mean, it doesn't get much better than the Maya. Note there's only 4 civics to unlock here, and you've got everything as well. So a bit of culture saved there. The effects are just so dense. Every single one of these is incredible and is worth getting basically as soon as you can. The Maya are insane. They took a notch off their crown in the patch that nerfed their quarter, but you cannot keep the Maya down. I think as long as they have this district with this quarter, with this effect, sorry, they will always be at least A tier, even if you kneecap just about everything else they do. But they have a great range unit, they have a great effect, a great scout, awesome buildings, and a fantastic civic tree. Maya can easily go up in S tier. What a civ. I should note I'm editing this up in post here, but I probably just made the Maya sound really overpowered and like they needed to be nerfed. But no, I think maybe they should be knocked down like, 5% less good or overall. But every other civ should be as fun to play as the Maya are. I think everyone else should be buffed. The Maya are so much fun to play. Yes, it's because they're broken, but I wish every civ was broken in their own way. Anyway, back to the tier list. We are getting to the absolute powerhouses of Civ 7 Antiquity now. We have the Mississippians, the Yo Helena Civ. If you've played them, you'll know what I mean. And this is another fantastic Civ. Back-to-back winners here. All buildings receive a +1 food adjacency for resources is their innate bonus, which is really fantastic. It gets everything going faster, just generally across the board. It's going to help you throughout the whole age a fair bit. You're going to get, at least in the realm of 5 to 10 food, probably in all of your towns at least. Cities is going to be, 10 to 20 food. It's really fantastic, and food is a lot better now, so keep that in mind as well. They get 30% production towards Monk's Mound. That is their unique wonder, and Monk's Mound comes really late. I think it's one of the last ones you get in the civic tree. It's way down here. +4 resource capacity in this settlement. Ageless, and also gives +3 food. It's a pretty good wonder. It's just a ton of resource capacity. I mean, what more is there to say? But resource capacity is good, and +4 is a lot. So Monk's Mound is good, and considering it's the last one in the tech tree here, you basically get that for free. So whenever you want, you can build Monk's Mound, and that is a really good buff. So that is a great start for Mississippi. But moving now to the units, this is where it starts to get good, really good in fact. We have what I would call the best unit in the game right here, the Burning Arrow. And unlike Maya, they actually did go all in with a unique effect for this unit. So this is their unique range unit. It has increased bombard strength, which is what you use to take down districts, reinforced districts, which is really great. +3 combat strength against siege units, which is a bit odd, but sure, it's good. And it applies the burning status to tiles for 2 turns. What this means is that if you shoot a unit, the tile that it's standing on catches fire for 2 turns. Any unit that, I think it starts their turn, not ends. I think if they start their turn on that tile, they take, I think it's 15 damage, which is a pretty decent amount of damage, really. It's almost like getting a second hit in every time. So this is insane. The Burning Arrow is absolutely, I would say, not even close, to be honest, when it comes to units in power level. This thing's great on defense. If someone's trying to attack your city, probably you really need like 2 Burning Arrows, and you can defend against like an army of hundreds. You just light all the tiles around your city on fire, And no, they don't really have a choice. So they have to keep moving them around every single turn. If you have any terrain, that's just going to end their turn straight away. So you end up in the situation where you can either attack the city, but you're going to catch on fire, which is probably going to kill or nearly kill the unit. Or you try to shift all your units around constantly and you just never get anything done and you just slowly get chipped down by archers. So that's it on defense. On offense, if you shoot an enemy city center with this and there's a unit in there trying to defend, typically that is the attacker's bane, is having a ranged unit in the city center just pinging away at you and you can't do anything about it until you break the walls. The burning arrow, however, lights the city center on fire, and the unit that is defending in the city center will take damage, even if you haven't taken down the city defenses yet. A completely insane unit, and a really fun effect. This is the first time in Civ we've seen something like, lighting tiles on fire from a unit. So I wish there was a lot more of this. I wish the burning arrow effect and things like this, like I said with Maya, I wish, their poison ability actually made people take damage over time, similar to this. Such a great unit, so fun to use, just incredible. You can very, very easily take over your neighbors by just building a few units up the front to keep your burning arrows safe, because they are still range units, they're very fragile, but they're just so good. And keep in mind, with the increased bombard strength, and the burning status, you can take down districts so easily with the burning arrow. Easily the best unit in the entire game, I would say. Awesome. Such a fun unit. Moving down, they have a unique merchant, and it can substitute trade route as normal. Their effect here is though it gains plus 25 gold per resource acquired when creating a trade route. This is really good. It's the same as a regular merchant, it just has this bonus tacked on top. And this is going to be hundreds of free gold for you as you create trade routes. It's really good. 25 gold per resource is pretty solid. Most cities, you can count on the AI having at least like 2 or 3 resources in most of their settlements. In their big ones, they'll probably get 4 or 5. So on average, probably getting about 100 gold every time you make a trade route with this unit. Really good stuff. I mean, that's basically Green Xerxes' effect right there. So a really good unit. It's a merchant, but it's better. And merchant's already something you want to be using, so it's great. And they have a unique improvement. It is the pot cop, and it gives +1 gold by default and +1 food for each adjacent resource. And it does not remove warehouse bonuses on the tile. So again, it keeps the base yields underneath of the tile, which is really good. So place these on top of your farms, mines, etc., all that stuff. I suppose you can't note that it has to be placed on flat terrain, so a bit restrictive there. But they're okay. They're not really game breaking, but it's free gold, it's free food, it's decent. The fact you can just place them on top of existing improvements is what makes them so good. And they're ageless, so that effect will stay with you forever, which is nice. Moving over to the civics, and we have some really good stuff in here. This is good stuff. This is high power level stuff. So Earthworks, the first one, unlocks your pot cop, which we just talked about, and they just get a plus 10% flat production towards constructing buildings. It's not a tradition, you can't carry this through in future ages, but as soon as you finish Earthworks, you have plus 10% production towards buildings for the rest of the age. Insane. Such a good bonus. It's just going to save you a ton of production throughout the game. It's great tempo. It's just good. It kind of doesn't need much of an explanation. It's just really solid. The mastery for Earthworks gives them their settlement limit, which is nice to get it reasonably early. And we have one of the best traditions in Antiquity, if not one of the best traditions in general, I would say, shell-tempered pottery. And this is where the Mississippians really start to take off. All buildings receive a +1 gold adjacency for resources. Combine this with your innate ability that gives +1 food from resources for buildings. It means that anything you build next to a resource gives +1 gold and +1 food. If you can find those great spots, where the resources line up, you can usually get, 2, sometimes 3, but at least 1 adjacency from this. So you can call it like a flat +2 gold and +2 food to all your buildings when you plug this in. It is insane. Shell-tempered pottery pretty much carries the Mississippian economy. This is, as I said, one of the best traditions in the game. You should probably have this plugged in, yes, in Antiquity, but you'll find yourself still plugging this in the modern age. It usually gives you hundreds of gold. It scales so well with your empire as you continue to grow. Shell-tempered pottery will grow right with you. Yeah, it's fantastic. I would say, actually, I'm going to say it here now, shell-tempered pottery is the best tradition in the game. Nothing comes close to how well it scales throughout the game. It's good in its age. It's good later. What a tradition. How good. And this mastery is also where you unlock Monk's Bound. So again, it's quite quick to unlock for such a late game wonder, which is nice. So you can choose when you want to build this, basically. Moving over, we have Wahi, and it allows the Burning Arrow to pillage within 2 tiles for only 1 movement. This is kind of people forget the Burning Arrows can even do this, to be honest, but pillaging in Civ 7 is not as strong when it comes to yields, I would say, at Civ 6. But this is such a strange effect. I'm not sure what the historical reason is for Burning Arrows being able to pillage from 2 tiles away. But I like to imagine they kind of put hooks on the arrows and then reel things back in like a fishing rod. But you can take cities with this. So if you destroy a city's defenses and there's no unit in the city center, you can take over a city with a burning arrow from 2 tiles away. A really interesting effect. If you have the commander that increases your pillage yields, then this is even better. The fact it only takes 1 movement means you can pillage a tile from, far away and then shoot on the same turn. A really insane buff. Don't overlook this one. It's really powerful. And then remember how I said that the only downside of the Burning Arrow was that it's still a range unit, so it's really fragile? Well, enter Atasa here, +4 combat strength for range units when defending. So this makes them, not as tanky as other units, but reasonably beefy. It's nice. So if you're going to war, plug this in. Your Burning Arrow units can essentially become pretty self-sufficient. They can take the hits, not very well, but they can do it. Pretty decent. And the last civic here, +2 resource capacity in the capital, which isn't great, it's fine. But gift economy, +1 gold and happiness for every imported resource is pretty good. This is going to be giving you a decent amount of gold in the early game. You have a really insane trader unit, so if you're not burning down your neighbors, you should be trading with them. And if you do, gift economy will reward you quite handsomely for that. So yeah, a fantastic set of traditions. Much like the Maya, every single one here is worth researching. You could probably skip this one if you're going fully peaceful. Then yeah, you can skip this one. But I would recommend going on the aggressive at least a little bit. The Burning Arrows are so good. You'll be surprised how easy it is to take over cities, even on deity. It feels like you're playing on easy mode, to be honest. But the Mississippi, I would say, this is where the distinction comes in between them and Maya, right? Mississippi, they are stronger than the Maya in Antiquity, but they're not as good as the Maya later. So Mississippi, much like their name, which is absolutely filled with them, can go straight in S tier. They are such a fun civ to play. The Burning Arrow is so fun. If you haven't played the Mississippians, go play them right now. They are incredible. S tier. Next up is Persia, and we're going to be getting some serious whiplash here, going from the Mayans and Mississippi to Persia, unfortunately. A shadow of their former self, if you played Persia in Civ 6, or even Civ 5, I think they were pretty good. Unfortunately, Persia, we'll get into it. So their bonus, inherent, is that infantry units receive +3 combat strength when attacking, which is pretty good. Persia is an aggressive civ, and we'll see that as we keep going. And this helps them be aggressive, and it's not a bad bonus. It just doesn't really help them much, in the early game or, in times of peace, but that's okay. They probably don't want to be at peace too often. They also get +30% production towards constructing the Gate of All Nations, which is probably the best wonder in the game, if we're being honest, just right off the bat. The problem is that everyone wants to get Gate of All Nations. It's really hard to get to, and the civic tree doesn't help them with that, as you'll kind of see. Actually, I forgot to mention, they did move this in the most recent patch, I think. So it's a little bit easier to get, but we'll get to that. But yeah, Gate of All Nations is a really, really fantastic wonder. It's great for everyone, but if you're Persia and you are going to be attacking people the whole game, it is exactly what they want. So look, so far so good, right? But we'll keep going. We have the Immortal. It's their unique unit. It's a unique infantry unit, which is already a little bit hay going because infantry units aren't generally great. And unfortunately, it's not quite as good as the Immortal we were used to in Civ 6. Here, this Immortal heals 15 health after defeating an enemy unit, which is okay. It's kind of a minor bonus. The AI doesn't tend to make that many units. They're just the ones they do make are quite strong in my experience. Even still, healing 15 health isn't insane. It's kind of an underwhelming effect, to be honest. Moving on to their unique commander, and it starts with the initiative promotion, which is really good. Initiative, if you don't know, I don't have a commander to showcase it, but it is the one that lets you move units. It lets units move right after they're deployed, essentially. Which is really great. That is, if you're going for an aggressive playstyle, chances are that's the one you want to go for first anyway. Initiative is really, it's the best, kind of the best promotion on commanders, really. It lets you just move around units so easily. You know, you can repack them, unpack them, and move them to a dodgy tile, and they can still move. Really fantastic, and gets you going on that sort of commander snowball faster, down to that last promotion to get a commendation quicker. So it's a pretty good commander. Again, it's sounding pretty good for Persia so far, right? But they're a one-trick pony. Anyway, move on to their unique improvement. +1 culture and gold. And that's about it. It doesn't remove warehouse bonuses, which is good, so put these everywhere you can. But they can't be placed adjacent to another Paradisa. Anyway, so not bad bonuses, but you can see very war focused. Moving over to their civic tree, we have Sparta, which gives them a inherent effect, -1 maintenance for units, gold maintenance that is, which is pretty good. You're going to be fielding a large army as Persia, and this is just without even taking up a policy slot. It's going to save you a pretty decent amount of gold. Maybe you have like 10 or 15, units kicking around. That's 3 commanders. That's 15 gold. Not bad, not terrible. And their tradition here, Kara, gives +50% production towards training infantry units. So again, infantry units usually aren't that great, but this heavily incentivizes you to spam out as many of those immortals as you can. So immortals, generally you probably wouldn't be building them really if you didn't have this card, but with this, yes, build your immortals. They are probably going to be better than cavalry in most circumstances, considering how much cheaper they are with this card. So keep that in mind. And next up, we have the Civic that gives them their unique improvement. This is where you get the Gate of All Nations. Again, I think this used to be on this one here, so I'm glad they moved it up at least once. It should probably still be moved up again, but I mean, the Gate of All Nations is really good, so maybe it's fair that it's in the second one. And the tradition they get here is +3 gold for every town, which again is more gold. It's pretty good. Persia tries to kind of play a bit of a gold theme up as well, but they're just not very good at it. I mean, these cards are pretty solid, and you'll probably still plug this in. It's similar to the one that gives you +2 gold on every settlement. I know this only works on towns, so a little bit rougher. Kind of ends up being about the same as +2 gold on all your settlements, really. And the mastery here gives you a unique improvement, +1 happiness from adjacent quarters. Kind of whatever. This might give you like an extra 1 or 2 happiness in cities. You're probably not going to be building these with that many quarters around. Like your rural tiles tend to be further out, so yeah, kind of a nothing bonus. But they do get their +1 settlement limit here, which is nice. It's not too far in. Their last civic here gives +5 gold for every different civilization you've captured a settlement from. I love the idea with this one, but it's just a pretty weak effect. I mean, you can't go around capturing one settlement from every civ. You're going to be capturing, a lot of settlements from one civ at a time. It's going to be really slow to get this one going. I love the idea of taking like one settlement from every civ you can, and that's really thematic, but the payoff here isn't enough to justify potentially being at war with the entire world. So I think they should bump this one right up. I think this could be 20 gold. for every different civ you've captured a settlement from. And I think that would be fine. Persia needs it. Persia needs a bit of help. And I think you could easily make this plus 20 gold and they'd still be just fine. So yeah, this one needs a serious buff, but I love the idea. And the mastery here, you get a second settlement limit. So one of the rare ones you get two, which is nice. That in theory is a really solid buff. And you get a tradition here, plus 3 combat strength for units in enemy territory. So combine that with your ability, you're getting now plus 6 combat strength if you're attacking in enemy territory, which is pretty great. Note that if you are Xerxes as well, you can bump that up to plus 9 with all 3 of those effects, which is pretty crazy. Look, Persia knows what it is. Persia is a military civ. They want to wreak havoc on the world. In theory, they want to be declaring war on a ton of different people. And because they probably have Gate of All Nations, they aren't going to be too affected by war weariness, hopefully, if you can keep it positive. So yeah, a decent set of abilities, but nothing to really write home about. I think the card that gives them production is nice to kind of getting to their end game, which is just crushing everyone. But they just don't do it very well. They're good at taking over people's cities. They're just not really rewarded much for doing so. The civic that is meant to kind of incentivize you for doing that isn't great. They don't even have anything like Maurya, which gets a much better effect of plus 10% to all yields in settlements you capture, which blows this out of the water. You could probably even swap those or give that to Persia, to be honest. So Persia needs a lot of help. They want to go to war, but they just need something more to really incentivize that. I think their improvement's kind of trash as well. Like, it's free yields, but it's often not really worth taking the time to build these until right at the end, so you can keep them in the next stage. Persia needs some help, unfortunately. Sorry, Persian fans. Persia probably belongs, I hate to say it, and I really do, in the D tier. And last but not least, we have Rome. And statistically, if you've played Civ 7 and you're watching this video, chances are you've played Rome. For most of you, I'm sure it was the first Civ you played. Everyone loves Rome. Let's get straight into their abilities. +1 culture on districts in the capital and city centers in towns. A decent, solid ability that, much like Rome in previous games, kind of just gives you stuff for free, and they're quite easy to play. At least you'd think so from this ability. But things do get a bit more complicated as we go down. But yeah, this is free culture. Rome likes to expand a lot. They're super expansionist, and so obviously the more towns you have, the more cities you get, the more culture you get for free. So this is great. Note that +1 culture on districts in the capital means you do want to grow your capital quite big. I always feel weird not playing Augustus, to be honest, when I play Rome, but here I am. The game picked him to go for me. But yeah, a decent bonus. It's free culture. It's good. It's nice. And a bit like Lafayette's bonus as well, it kicks in from turn 1, which is good. So, I would usually be getting +11 culture here, but I'm Himiko High Shaman. But you'll get +1 culture from the start of the game, which is great. And they get +30% production towards the Colosseum. The Colosseum is a really good wonder. So +2 happiness on quarters in the settlement you build it in, and +3 culture base yield, which is pretty solid. This essentially cancels out, any specialists you build everywhere. So the Colosseum's good. You want to build that way you can. So a decent bonus there. And we have the Legion, a really good unique infantry unit. This is showing up the Immortal, which we just looked at right before. So +1 combat strength for every tradition in the government. Now again, infantry units typically aren't that great, but the Legion is an exception to this. So get a few traditions going in your government, and this thing can power up pretty quickly. A really solid unit, again, paired with Lafayette, is another surprisingly good combo. I think this used to be +2 combat strength for every tradition, by the way, so unfortunately they were nerfed, but I think it's still a pretty solid unit. You want your infantry units to be tanks, really, just soaking up damage. And this lets them do that a bit better, and yes, on the offense they'll be better too, but it just makes them beefier beef tanks, right? So it's good. Legions are good. Next up is their unique commander. They get the Legatus, and it gains +1 charge to create a new settlement for every 3 levels this commander gains, which is really fantastic. Another great synergy with Rome, my favorite, is Trung Truck. her first commander gets 3 levels straight away, and I think plus 20%. I think it is commander experience in general increased. But if you're playing Truck, you unlock discipline, you get your first army commander, and you can instantly found a settlement. But even if you're not playing Truck, I think this is a very solid ability. You want to be going to war with Rome where you can. They're not like as crazy about it as Persia, but you want to be going to war. You want to be leveling up your commanders. And as you do that, as you fight, even if you can't take over the settlements yourself, your legatuses can create cities for you. So build, I would recommend at least 2 of these. You know, it hurts to build a commander. They get really expensive really quickly. But you're essentially building a long-term investment in more settlers. You don't have to build too many settlers on Rome if you are locked in, solid wars where you can level them up really quickly. So yeah, the Legatus is a really interesting commander replacement. I wish there was more effects like this. I think Rome is such an interesting civ. All the different directions you can take with all their effects, but they all work quite well together as well. I think they're really good in that sense. And they get a unique quarter, so what's not to like? We have the Basilica, +4 gold, and +1 influence adjacency for culture buildings and wonders. This is, I think, at least in Antiquity, I want to say, the only influence adjacency building in the game. And culture buildings are quite easy. I mean, you can get, at least +2 influence with this quite easily, which is really solid. They also have the Temple of Jupiter, +3 happiness, and +1 culture adjacency for happiness buildings and wonders. So 2 pretty solid buildings here. Influence is such a strong yield, and they get a pretty solid amount of it here through their Basilica. But if you build both of these buildings on the same district, you get the unique quarter, the forum, and the forum gets +1 culture for every unique tradition in the government, which again, similar to the Legion here, you want to be slotting in traditions in your government. As you do, it's going to make all of your forums much stronger, a really solid quarter. Not as essential to build together as some of the others, but it's a good chunk of culture, so make sure you do. But really, the winner here is the Basilica. It's a good amount of gold, a good amount of influence, a really solid building. Moving over to their civic tree, they have a lot of them. So first up, this is the civic that unlocks the Temple of Jupiter, which is the happiness and culture building, and you also get +5% production towards military units in the capital for every town. And you'll see as you go along here, Rome likes to build up Roma. Their capital becomes really good. You get more culture from districts in the capital, and you get a ton of production here towards units in the capital. The more towns you have, you want to be spreading out as much as you can. Keep that in mind while you're playing them. The second mastery here is that the Legatus gains the Bulwark promotion for free. I'll probably put it up on the screen here, but the Bulwark promotion is really good. It's in the defensive tree, and it lets your units build fortifications in 1 turn instead of 2, which is really, really strong. It means you can move, fortify, and it's amazing. So make sure you don't get the Bulwark promotion if you're playing Rome with your Legatus. They will get them for free later when you research this, and you should. Worst case, it's 1 free level on all your commanders, which gets them 1/3 of the way to their next settlement. Founding another settlement, which is amazing. So this is, it's such a small effect, but again, because Rome, everything synergizes so well, and it's so interestingly designed. This 1 mastery here with 1 effect is really impactful, which is super cool. Down to Civis Romanus here. This is where you get the Basilica, a really fantastic building. And you also get a tradition here that training an infantry unit grants culture equal to 25% of its production cost, which isn't amazing. It's not going to be much culture, but you should plug this in. If you're pumping out a bunch of legions in your cities, plug this in and you'll get a ton of free culture alongside it. But definitely one that you kind of plug in and plug out as you need to. You can keep this in future ages, but it just gets worse and worse. It doesn't scale well at all, but yeah, it's there, but a bit disappointing. And down to the mastery here, you have +2 gold in the capital for every town you own. This is pretty fantastic. It's just a ton of free gold as you expand and you build towns everywhere. This is going to give you free gold. Again, no policy slot required. It's just there. This is worth getting a little bit later once you have a good amount of towns. This is, again, Only one effect here, but it's pretty good for what it is. On to their next civic, which you need both of these to get to. We gain a free infantry unit in new settlements that you found. So again, if you can delay settling a bunch, which you probably don't want to be doing, but it's just more free infantry units. You'll find yourself with more legions that you know what to deal with when you're playing Rome, especially if you do kind of rush this civic early. This is also where you get +1 settlement limit, which is great. For Rome, they want as many settlements as they can, like everyone does, but Rome really does. And they get a fantastic tradition here, +5% food, gold, and culture in towns without a growing town focus, which just means any other specialization, any town specialization benefits from this card, which, as we know, urban centers are completely broken right now. And this card gives you 5% food, gold, and culture to all of your urban centers. Because of towns being busted right now, this card has gone through the roof in terms of value. I think it was always pretty good. You want to be specializing your towns realistically, so it was always good, but this card has just gotten insane now. I think this card is carrying Rome way up the tier list for what I would have put it, in the previous patch. So plug this one in. If you have the policy preview mod, which unfortunately as of this video is not on Steam Workshop yet, but go and get that whichever way you can. You'll see just how good this card is. It doesn't sound 5% doesn't sound like much. It's a lot of yields. It's a lot of free yields. And their last civic here, they get a good one, +1 social policy slot. I think this is the only civic that gives you this, which is great to plug in more traditions for your legions and for your unique district, the forum. You get another settlement limit here, so again, Rome gets +2, which is amazing for their expansionist dreams. And you get a tradition, +1 production on urban districts in your capital. This is okay. It's not a mind-blowing amount of production, but especially in the early game, it's probably okay. And if you have a spare slot, whack this one in. It's probably, I don't know, probably only 5 or 6 production in your capital, so not exactly mind-blowing, but if you have nothing better to slot in, then sure, makes your capital slightly better. And this is also where you unlock the Colosseum, reasonably on par with where it is in the regular civic tree, although I guess if you rushed it, it's only 3 in, so this is actually 4 in, so it does come a bit later, but probably not many people are going to be doing this. I don't think the AI really follows this path too much either, so it's fine. Get the Colosseum if you can, but wouldn't be too sad if you missed out, realistically. So Rome, I think Rome would be the quintessential B tier civ if it wasn't for this policy card. I think Latinitas definitely just gets Rome over the line to A tier, I would say. I really enjoy playing Rome. I think they're a fun civ. They're all about expanding, which I like. I like playing wide. If you like playing wide as well, play Rome. You probably already have, as I said. I mean, Rome tends to be the most popular civ in civ, but they are so much fun. You found your capital, you build out a few towns, you go to war with people. As you go to war, your commanders level up, which lets you settle more towns. And as your commanders level up, you take more towns over from other people, and you just grow and grow and grow. And as you do, your capital gets better from that. It's fantastic. Rome is really fun. A lot of synergy between all their abilities. And yeah, I'll happily put them in A tier. There you have it. That is the complete tier list, although I will go ahead in post here and make one small change. I think I was way too harsh on Carthage. I really played up the fact that a lot of their traditions weren't as good anymore now that urban centers are so strong. But really, urban centers completely make up for their lack of cities. The fact that they can only make one city is not really even much of a downside anymore, considering urban centers are like 90% of the way to being cities. So I'm going to post humorously, I'm going to award Carthage a late S tier ranking here. They're really fantastic. They set you up really well for the rest of the game. So yeah, Carthage, sorry about that. You can move up to your rightful place in S. There we have it. That is the complete tier list. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree or disagree with any of the rankings I've made here? You'll note that there's no C tier civs, which I think is pretty emblematic, and I stick to this, that there's a big power difference between the best civs in Antiquity and the worst. It's kind of one of these situations where, yes, you can always win with every civ in this game. There's nothing that's actually that terrible. But the power level difference between, you know, Maya and Mississippi versus Egypt and Persia is just absolutely ridiculous. Two players of the same skill level, the one playing Egypt would have to play like 4 times as good, which probably isn't even possible to compete with, you know, the player playing Mississippi. It really is stark, the difference in power levels between some of these civs, so that's why it looks like a bit of a reverse bell curve here. But regardless, that's pretty much all I've got for today. So if you made it this far, you know, like, subscribe and all that good stuff. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. I'm keen to hear what you guys think about some of these rankings. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Hope you enjoyed the video.